Let's get this rolling. What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics. We got Kevin from Superpower Review here today. Kev, what are we doing today? What's this top 10 list we're doing?
Today we are counting down our top 10, what do we say, island comic books. So if we were stuck on an island, these are our top 10 favorite reads. We can, not read these comic book issues enough. Like every time we read them, they're just, like we read them for the first time. That's how good they are.
Yeah, our read count on some of these comics we're going to share with you tonight. I mean, looking at my list, I've read some of these 500 times. Could actually be that actual number. So
True.
We're excited to share with you guys. First things first, though, make sure you go over to Superpower Review. If you're not subscribed already, you're going to want to be doing that. His videos are a lot higher quality than mine. So cheers, Kev.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All right. So do you want to take number one or should I?
Oh, we're going right into number one. I thought we were going 10 to 1.
Actually, that makes a lot more sense. Although, to be honest, my list I put together, it's not in any particular order. These are all island books, so they're all amazing, right?
Yeah, it was kind of hard, kind of breaking them down. Like, ooh, which one I want more to be in the close to number one. But I got to figure it out, dude.
We're able to decipher a number one out of all that.
Yeah, number one, it was easy. After number one, then it got a little difficult.
Yeah, my favorite comic of all time rotates like every Wednesday, so that wouldn't work for me. I mean, I've got like the same 30 that just switch in and out. But hey, I'll get you guys started. My list is in no particular order, but my number 10 has to be the Swamp Thing Winter Special. Now, that's for a couple reasons. And it's a tricky one because it's one of those issues where the entire issue circulates around Swamp Thing and a little boy. And so much of what happens, I can't actually talk about because the ending would spoil pretty much everything in the entire issue. Just know that the entire issue, everything that you see is not what it seems. And there's always, with Swamp Thing, you always get that high quality writing of, am I a monster? Am I not? They always deal with great classic horror tropes. Yeah. This one's loaded with it. And I believe is that Jason Fabok? I think
it is, dude. It's glorious Jason Fabok artwork, and I can't get enough of it.
He's probably it's difficult to say the best artist of our time, but he very well could be. It's just his line work, his stuff. It's so crisp and clear. I never get tired of that one. And
True.
That's just a banger of a comic. And it is my most recent comic entry on this list. Kev, what's your 10?
If I could add on to it, actually, if you don't mind, I mean, it's also a fantastic tribute to the creators of Swamp Thing, Bernie Wrightson and Len. So it's just so great on that. And I love what you said too. Like, is it a monster? Is he a monster? But it pulls on the heartstrings, man, for sure. It's you're not expecting that ending, and
it's weird not being able to talk about it. Yeah.
No, go check that out. But that's a really good start to number 10. And for Swamp Thing reads, that would definitely, if we were doing a top 10 Swamp Thing read, that would definitely be on my list.
We should do that. That video will get like 4 views, but we should totally do that sometime.
He's underrated, dude. He's totally underrated. But
I made a Swamp Thing video once before. I think it was my least performing video of 2021, but he's the best at the same time, so I'll do it again. So
I feel your pain.
All right, what's your 10?
All right, number 10. This is a book that I had in my my to read pile for a long time. I bought it at a flea market. It was in my to read pile for like 2 years, and so I finally read it. And, that was just that perfect time. Like I will get to it. It's just I'm not ready yet. So I ended up reading the book, of course, absolutely falling in love with it. And when I love a comic book, I have to have multiple copies of it. So I like to have my raw copy, and I like to have my slabbed copy. So this was actually my 32nd birthday, my 32nd birthday present to myself. And it is a Daredevil number 181. This is a fantastic cover by Frank Miller. This is written by Frank Miller and drawn by Frank Miller. And this is where Elektra dies. So Bullseye ends up finding out who Daredevil is, and he is looking for the perfect way to get back at Daredevil. He's looking for revenge, and he ends up finding out who Daredevil is in love with, and that is Elektra, and goes out and finds her and kills her. So just a kind of a spoiler here, guys. I am a huge fan of comic books that have action in them and, grotesque fight scenes. I love a good story, but I love the story that builds up to the fight scene. And it's also pretty cool when someone dies in a comic book, right?
That's a great choice, dude. That almost could have been on my list easily. I mean, you could kind of choose a bunch from the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff, but that's got to be one of the culmination points for sure.
Touche, man. And the panels are just absolutely cinematic in that book. So I just absolutely love how that book is laid out as well.
Iconic. All right, my number 9 is probably one that you've never heard of. This is the amazing, dare I say it, perfect comic books of John Ostrander's Spectre run. I'm talking about issue number 5. This is a weird one. There's a little kid that gets kidnapped, and there's only one surviving kidnapper, and he dies in the hospital. Spectre tries to come after him, enters his soul, and literally goes into hell and confronts Satan. And it's this whole thing to try to get the information to bring it back to reality to save this little kid. And it's the artwork, it's the crazy scale of hell and the damned, and his conversation with Satan, which leaves him telling him that, like, prophesying about who the Spectre is going to become. It's just this crazy book that just looked like they weren't expecting that many people to read it, so they just went nuts. And it's like, honestly, like a perfect comic book. Spectre number 5, man. I think that's 1992, 93. I don't know. It's the art carries it, the story carries it, and it's just one of the most underrated runs in general, but that one particular issue works for me because it's a standout single issue.
Cool.
That's a great one, man.
Awesome, man. I mean, I don't know too much about Spectre other besides when I see him or read him in Swamp Thing, but that story also kind of sounds very similar to a Swamp Thing issue.
It's right up your alley. So yeah, but I really recommend that John Ostrander. They still sell it, I think, on Amazon, like Volume 1 trade paperback. Pick it up. You'll be so glad you did.
Sweet,
and what's
man.
your number 9, boss?
All right, so for number 9, continuing on, this is one of my favorite Swamp Thing issues. We got Swamp Thing number 1, man. I do love me a House of Secrets number 92, although this is not the continuing Swamp Thing. This is the real Swamp Thing that we know and fall in love with and follow throughout the years with Alec Holland. This is also his origin and how he becomes Swamp Thing. It's just a Alec Holland. Thank you. Alex Olsen is the one that we see in House of Secrets number 92. But this
better book, the one you're holding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody loves their first appearance, but yeah, I would absolutely agree with you that this is the better book, and that's why we do not see a House of Secrets number 92 on this list. Fantastic cover. I just feel like that when Len Wein writes a Swamp Thing, he really just lays out the environment perfectly. All the little sounds, back in the swamp, the frogs, the crickets chirping, the splashes of the alligator. He does a fantastic job. Like when he writes that, I just hear those noises in my head. But it's a great origin story, and it's just fantastic artwork by Bernie Wrightson. So really happy to have this one too.
You got that right. I wish I never sold mine. I got the ones actually that I bought from you. I still got all those. I got like 2 through 10. So I got to get another one back. But my number 8, folks, is we're going to take a trip over to Spider-Man Land. This is Ultimate Spider-Man issue 13. And it is almost a bottle episode. So it's all contained within the comforts of Peter's bedroom. Now, what I mean by that is it is entirely told of Peter telling MJ that he's Spider Man, and that's the whole issue. You probably think, how did they cram that moment into one whole comic book? Well, they do so with the perfect nuances that Brian Michael Bendis completely understood like teenagers. So it's told from the point of view of two teenagers dorkily and nervously talking with each other. And it's the most, one of the most times I've felt that Peter Parker was the most understood that I've ever read.
Mm.
Brian Michael Bendis really gets Peter Parker. I will say that. And that's it. I mean, the only interruptions in the story is when Aunt May comes in to tell them no hanky panky time. Like literally, it sounds boring, but it is excellent. And I think it actually was on a couple lists of like top single issues of like the year you were born for like 2002 or '03 or whatever. I saw that made it onto the list. So other people feel the same way about that particular Ultimate Spider-Man issue. And that issue is one of those reasons I think the Ultimate Spider-Man run gives ASM a shot for its money. It really does. So, anyway, what's next, Kev?
Fantastic issue, man. So up next, I'm going to give it to yet another Swamp Thing issue. This is the only raw book that you will see tonight on the list. Everything else is slabbed, but here is a Saga of the Swamp Thing number 21, and this is written by Alec Moore. Alan Moore. I'm sorry. Can I do that again?
Freudian slip. This is written by Alan Holland.
Alan Holland.
Alan Holland and Alec Moore.
Who
Great
said that
issue,
again?
though. 21. That's what's up.
Yeah, so fantastic issue. You know, this is the second issue that Alan Moore writes for Saga of the Swamp Thing, and he just comes in on this run, just kind of finishing off loose ends from the previous writer, and just comes in like, this is what I'm going to do with this character, and just turn the whole origin story on top of, flipped it upside down. So here we're thinking that Swamp Thing is a man that turned into a monster, but all along he was never ever a man. So fantastic issue. I recently just read this one for Halloween. I like it. It's kind of scary and spooky, but it is a great issue featuring the Floronic Man. So a lot of people can laugh about the Floronic Man, but I think he's also he's a perfect villain for Swamp Thing. So
Yeah, dude, I've been trying to actually nab first Floronic Man, which is he wasn't called Floronic Man. It's in Atom #1. Really tough book to get. I'll let you guys know when I actually finally pick that up. Good choice, though, my dude. My next pick is Batman Red Rain. Now, I'm kind of breaking my rule because I kind of wanted to look at single issues, and Red Rain had sequels. It had Crimson Mist. It had another one, but that was the main, what's that, late 80s, early 90s, when Kelly Jones joined to draw Batman up against Dracula. And it works so much better than it even sounds. It's one of those ones, just like Spectre #5, where the art carries it, but also the story is unbelievably solid. That is one I am in danger of reading probably into the triple digits. I reread, they have it in trade paperbacks. It's called Batman Vampire. It's in Batman Elseworlds Tales. You can get it in a bunch of different ways. But that first book of the 3 books, Red Rain, is probably, some people would say, the best. Some people say Crimson Mist. I don't know. But it's just amazing. And Batman's really clever in it. It does all the Batman stuff perfectly. And one of the best things about it is, for vampire heads, the vampire lore is weirdly airtight. Like, they really read up about every fine detail before they set out to make that issue, and those details really get appreciated, I think. I've already read it a couple times this year, which means I'm a little behind. because I usually reread it every like 4 months. Man, it's I mean that is actually the issue that probably got me into being an artist. I would
Oh, yeah,
trace it as a kid. So yeah, that
that's pretty
thing.
cool.
Yeah, that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love one of their favorite superheroes to turn into a monster? I mean, I was a huge sucker for Marvel Zombies when that came out in high school. I was in high school at the time. I'm like, man, my favorite, like Spider-Man turning into a zombie, eating MJ and Aunt May. Like, I gotta read
Yeah.
that.
But also, how well does that work for Batman, who basically almost is a vampire?
Right,
You know,
right.
I mean, like a vampire bat situation going on. So it's yeah, it if you haven't read it, good God, you know what you need to do. Kev, what's our
Absolutely.
next book?
All right, next book. Moving on. So again, trying to show some love to all the characters that I like. We have a Wolverine #1 from the limited series from
Ooh.
1982, written by drawn by Frank Miller and written by Chris Claremont. This issue, shows the famous Wolverine line: "I am the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice." So he's in the woods. He's tracking down a bear. This bear is on some. He was shot by hunters that had some drug in it that made it go wild, and it killed a couple of people. And that made Wolverine furious, so he had to take the bear down. But he also goes and travels all the way to Japan. He finds that his love interest, married some other dude, and he's not happy about that either. Like, man, I love this woman. Like, why would they do that? And he ends up going to do what Wolverine does. He goes in and just tries to wreak havoc. He fights Shingen, or you say it, Lord Shingen,
Sure.
and in this issue, it proves that Wolverine has no strategy. He just goes in with anger, and he really just gets taken out and kind of shown on how much of an animal he really is. So in this whole series, you just kind of he learns to kind of find a little more respect. He gets a little more calm, and he learns the way of the samurai.
Yes, sir. Dude, good pick, and what a hell of a book.
Yeah,
I didn't
man.
know you had a 9.8 sign to that. Jeez.
I got a 9.8 blue label too.
That's quite the flex, my friend. Um, what books do I have up on my wall? That's cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit you with my next entry here.
Hit
Although,
me with it.
admittedly, this entry was already done by Kevin, and I even though it's on his list, I couldn't remove it from mine. I got to be honest; it has to stay, and it's Swamp Thing 21. That
Yep.
whole take everything you think you know about Swamp Thing and turn it on its head,
Mm.
and you know what? Even Swamp Thing doesn't know you're not a human. Your heart and your organs and everything is actually just biomatter and whatever. And it later causes him to just die of existential crisis and then the rediscovery of himself in later issues. Can you imagine if Alan Moore never did that?
Right.
I don't know if Swamp Thing would be the same today. It made him such an unbelievably deeper character
Yeah.
because he's not actually human.
Right.
He had to then create who he was for himself. And that whole arc of like, I got to find out who I am can often get really overplayed. But here's where it's the best because you're literally not even a human being.
Right.
All these memories you think you have of Alec Holland and whatever, that was regurgitated by the swamp. You're just a plant, bruh.
And,
So, y-
and- go ahead.
so it's just, I thought that was brilliant. Classic Alan Moore to just be able to tackle a project like that and really make it his own. And we, decades later, can't thank him enough for it.
For
So,
sure, man, for sure. And that's the reason why, and it's particularly this issue. This is why I love Swamp Thing, is because it's really so deep that I think it's like really deep for comic books. It's not like, oh, Spider-Man's got to go save MJ for, the millionth time.
yeah.
It's just so deep. And I just think that whole issue is just super creative on how they did it. I just absolutely love it, and that's what really got me onto this whole Swamp Thing journey. I'm actually reading the whole Alan Moore run right now,
Me
as
too.
you can see the absolute right there.
Yeah.
This is something that I read annually. I just absolutely love it, and and after even finding out that he is not human or was never human, he still thinks so human, and you just see him kind of go out through the issues and
He's
phasing
more
that
of a
out.
human than half of the rest of us out there. Yeah.
Right, right. And just one more thing on a side note, I had Stephen Bissett for an interview on the channel, and he will declare that's his favorite Swamp Thing issue.
I think for a lot of people, that is, I don't want to say the high point because I love how it sets up all the other great things that come after it, but
Yeah,
it's a game changer. I'll say
yeah,
that. And it's also part of that whole, there's a reason I'm obsessed with late 80s, early 90s stories, especially with DC, Vertigo, things like that, is it almost took a pause on being for kids for a
mm,
while there, and comics were targeted to adults that wanted to read something actually mentally challenging
yes,
instead of having to go to like book clubs and stuff. Your childhood comic books now could be brought to the book club. You know what I
right,
mean? So
right,
it's just that whole movement was great. Let's keep it moving though.
sure.
I think that was my entry, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was your entry,
All right.
but
So
we had to share the love on
we
it.
did, we did. So you take it away. What we got?
All right, taking it away. This is number what number is this, James? Remind me.
Uh, 5,
This
4.
is
Yeah,
we're having so much fun.
yeah.
All right, so my next pick, and James, calm down when you see it. All right, this is one of my favorite books. This is a
Oh,
Batman number 251.
uh,
This is arguably the first Bronze Age appearance of Joker. I've heard that tossed around sometimes, and I kind of like that title. Classic Neil Adams cover, as we know. Denny O'Neil story, and this is the return of Joker, and not only the return of the character, but the return of his dark roots, coming back and murdering some of the people that did him wrong, that was in his gang, and Batman just following him and trying to stop him, which he seems to never really do. He only puts like a little band-aid on it. All right, let's send him back to Arkham. He's just only going to come back out. But absolutely love this issue. The ending is a bit campy. I wish the ending was a bit better, but I really love seeing Joker. Just that first panel, you see him laughing, driving that car in the rain, and he's just maniacal, and he's just going to go back into town wreaking havoc.
yes, sir. I'm too lazy. It's literally 5 feet away, but it's buried in a box that's like Fort Knox in here of my Batman runs, and it's one of the better books that I've got. That is a hell of a book. I actually almost put that on my list. I almost did a bunch of other Batman entries, but I wanted to be honest and really choose the one that I think are really my island books. Although, funny
Same.
thing, on an island, I'd still be too afraid to read that. I'd want my digital copy or something.
If we were on an island, we would be burning these for to make fire
Yeah,
to
and
survive.
crying while we do it. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to hit you with my next one here. Here's another one where my read count on this thing, it's got to be insane. And that is Silver Surfer issue 50. This is the origin of Silver Surfer. And it's told with Silver Surfer's coming to Earth to try to warn everybody about Thanos, which leads into Infinity Gauntlet, as many of you know.
Hmm.
But it's basically Thanos taunting Silver Surfer throughout the whole issue, and you get all these flashbacks into the relationship that Norrin had with his father, and how his father ended up being disgraced, and he turned his back on his dad, and his dad ends up like committing suicide,
Hmm.
and Silver Surfer. It just basically makes Silver Surfer kind of a flawed character. Like he's got this troublesome past where he could have done more for his dad, and it's. I have read that thing so many freaking times because one thing too, the art is kind of stellar. in that issue. It's very high polish, very nicely done. It's an anniversary issue, so they went all out. Thanos, it was my first introduction to Thanos as a
Oh,
kid.
cool.
So I was like, I didn't have Infinity Gauntlet. I just had Silver Surfer 50. So I was like, who is this dude? Like he's wow, he's really scary. He's badass. And like he's just totally like he could literally flick Silver Surfer across the
Boink.
screen. He's just so unbelievably powerful, and I know now that's because he had all the six gems. But at the time, I was just so impressed by the villain. I was so taken with that origin story that I haven't read it in a little while. But when I was a kid, I used to. My copy is like detached at the cover. I've read it so much.
That's very loved.
Yeah, take it away.
All right, so up next, guys, this is if we were doing series, this is my hands down my favorite series. But I picked the favorite issue out of that series, and I think James can agree. And I'm surprised it's not on your list actually, but I got to go with Batman 404 from year one. Again, written by Frank Miller. We got artwork by David Mazzucchelli, and I absolutely love the story. I love the retelling of Bruce Wayne coming back to Gotham and becoming Batman. So he's been studying to become a ninja. He's back in Gotham. We have James Gordon being the lieutenant of Gotham, and then Batman, or Bruce Wayne, he's not Batman yet. He goes into Gotham as his first mission to kind of scope out the situation with Gotham, and ends up getting severely hurt. Meets Catwoman for the first time, and I just absolutely love the story. I love the ending of it. The ending is what does it for me, where he's sitting on the chair. He's battered, bloodied, almost on the verge of death, and just kind of gets revitalized when he thinks about having hallucinations with talking to his dad. Like, what can I do to make them afraid? And that savior, that bat, comes crashing through the window, and that's where he becomes Batman. I shall become a bat.
Yeah, that's an important frickin' book, man. That is,
Yep.
I mean, throw away the whole it does have value thing, and which actually I don't know if you saw the value on that book just is declining like crazy.
Is
But
it? Well, good
everybody
for me.
still loves it. Everybody still loves it because it's year one. It's the modern retelling that we all know. It's
Absolutely.
does it get more important? I think not. All
Exactly.
right. Next book, I'm going to go with Sandman issue 18. At least I'm pretty sure it's 18. I really hope I'm not wrong. So the Sandman series, and I'm so glad they made it into a show, and this comic was made into a bonus episode. This is, I guess you'd call the cat book, the
Okay.
cat episode, if you will. It's like an almost one shot in the middle of the Sandman series where the whole time the series is focusing on certain characters and it's all grounded in like reality with the dream space. Well, in this issue, it follows cats. What a freaking what a risk they chose to do with that one. And it enters the dream space of the cat talking to an ancient cat ruler about a time where cats actually used to rule over humans. And it's one of these books where you're just reading it and you're like, what the hell is going on here? But then it's like really high quality.
Mm.
So, and only Neil Gaiman could pull off a story about cats in the middle of an award-winning series and have it resonate as much as it did. So, for randomness, for epicness, for storytelling, and for risk, it's got to be on my list. Although, admittedly, there's a lot of Sandman issues that could have been on this list, if we're being honest.
I haven't sucking my teeth into Sandman yet.
Do that. You'll be real
I
happy
will.
you did. Also, you could watch the show. I would give the show like a solid A minus, which is pretty.
For also following content.
I thought it was pretty faithful.
Okay.
And yeah, no, there are moments where it's like panel by panel. Like
Yeah, I've heard that.
perfectly it. Yeah, I thought it was a total win, and I think I heard it got renewed, so I'm
Yes.
really excited about that. Probably one of the better shows I've seen in the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah,
So,
I'll have
all
to
right,
check that.
what you got for us?
All right, up next, we are. Ooh, I love this book, man. We're getting closer and closer. We're dwindling down. We're getting into some of my favorite books. We got Amazing Spider-Man number 252, the first appearance of Spider-Man in the black suit, and Spider-Man is coming back from Battleworld after Secret Wars. He's got Kirk Connors in his arms, and he's just trying to figure out everything that's going on after Secret Wars. He's a little bit confused. I've read this comic book so many times, man. I just absolutely love it. I mean, I think this was different for me because it was the first time I've ever seen like a Spider-Man with scruff. And you've always seen Peter Parker like clean shaven, and I don't know
He
why.
looks a lot older. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks much older. You're like, man, I'm not used to that, but it matches the suit, right? And as you guys know, if you guys follow my channel, I'm just an absolute sucker of the symbiote suit. It's my favorite suit. I wish it was number one, the first Spider-Man suit, and I just love it when we see like the suit kind of forming over him, and I just think that's just so badass.
I do actually always kind of associate with you with just Venom, Carnage. Like, you are just like the symbiote.
Symbiotes.
Yeah, you're like the Venom Meister symbiote guy.
Yeah,
So the funny thing about that book is so many people I think get caught up in the value of it. And it's actually one of the better, most cohesive Spider-Man stories I've read. I also have read it a lot. The first time I read it was actually in a really weird. I didn't read it in the actual comic. It was collected in almost like a who's who of Spider-Man villains. They
mm,
stuck it at the end of this
mm,
little graphic novel I had when I was young, and I would always reread that story. And later, I found out that that was 252.
yep.
But I always loved that story, how he handles the suit. It's a really great story, and it makes me happy that not only is it such a desirable key, but it's also such a desirable story. So
Absolutely. When I was in high school, loving the symbiote suit, I picked this up in high school. It's The Birth of Venom, and it just goes through ASM 252, Secret Wars, and it just follows up all the way to 300. And so, like, if you ever want to get into like what happens with him in the suit, you gotta pick up that trade
yep,
paperback. It's great.
for sure. All right, my next choice is going to go to Superman 82. This has two different covers. The one I like is with Cyborg Superman in the background with Superman on the front. It's kind of one of those early attempts at a 90s gimmicky cover. And this book is really important because Superman's back, and all the guys that have been caught up in all of that death and return of everything with Superman, it all culminates with this massive scale battle between Superman and Cyborg Superman, which is one of my favorite duos of all time, and is a
Sick.
this is your giveaway that I was a 90s obsessed kid. I mean, that is one of the most 90s books out there. But for whatever reason, you were mentioning with the death of Electro, you want to talk about comics that has action. Almost the entire issue is hardcore fighting, like really
Absolutely.
intense. I mean, I remember the skills because I think it's in Coast City, which was either destroyed or being destroyed. I'm a little foggy. Um, and just like it's nuclear blasts, and it's just like this freaking insane issue. And like Superman curses in it, and he's so badass. And it's just like that's hashtag my Superman. Like that is when I was a little kid, my eyes bulged out of my head whenever the scale was so ridiculous, and Cyborg Superman was so evil, Hank Henshaw, and he was scary, and it, the art was amazing. I mean, I can't sing its praises enough. Um, I mean, a lot of people know it was one of the most printed runs in the 90s
Yes, it
for
was.
a reason.
Yes, it was.
That was my number three, I believe. So take it away with yours.
Yes, you are correct, sir. Number three, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm a sucker for action scenes, brutality. Love my fight scenes, and in this issue, you get all of that. So we have the Incredible Hulk number 340, classic Todd McFarlane cover. Look at all that rage! Ah, um, so Wolverine and the Hulk haven't seen each other since issue 182, technically. And, Hulk has been dying for a rematch for the longest time.
Wait, was the gap that long?
It was that long. Yep.
Bro, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's been a quick minute. Hulk has been wanting a rematch for a long time, and so Wolverine is like, you know what? This is the time where he's in charge of the X-Men. He's like, you know what? I'm not that guy anymore. I don't want to go berserker. I don't want to fight with you anymore. I'm just not who I am. I'm trying to set a better example for the X-Men now that I'm the leader. Well, it doesn't take long. The Hulk pursues him. Wolverine's popping his claws, and we got nothing but claws, fists of rage in this whole entire issue. It's just absolutely fantastic. Like I said, I love my fight scenes, and we got Todd McFarlane doing the artwork, and he's one of my favorite artists, so you can't go wrong with this issue.
so fun fact about that book. I just made a video talking about top 10 ugly covers, something.
That wasn't it, was it? Was it your ugly
No,
cover?
no. Someone put in the comments that they thought that should have been an entry, and I was reading that comment
Wow.
because 99.9% of your comments are always great and positive, and then you get that one comment
One
that
guy.
sticks with you all day. Like, what the hell was that guy talking about?
The peanut gallery.
Why are you coming after that classic cover saying that was ugly? That was bizarre. Yeah, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, no. Fun fact: I don't know the issue. I can't remember the top of my head, but it's actually an homage to a Marvel fanfare issue.
Hmm,
That's where
very
Todd
cool.
got the issue. I think it's number 8. I'm not sure.
I did not know that actually. All right, my second to last here goes to a kind of a more modern book as Sensational Spider-Man Annual #1. Spider-Man is a fugitive in this issue,
Yeah,
and story takes place with MJ in a diner, and she thinks she's catching up with an old boyfriend. Or was it a boyfriend or was it a friend? It doesn't really matter that she knew
boyfriend.
back when she was a model or whatever. And he's having a conversation with her, and it keeps cutting back to Peter in a bar talking to a detective asking to turn himself in to protect MJ. And it also has these awesome flashbacks to him, Harry, Gwen, and MJ like chilling in like the same diner, but many years earlier, which is a really cool effect there. And the whole thing about the issue is this boyfriend or whatever friend MJ is like, why are you protecting this fugitive? Like, he's given your life so much hell. How can it possibly be worth it? Peter's on the other end saying, I can't do this to her, blah blah blah, I just can't do it. And in the end, the guy in the bar is trying to get the information out of her to get her. She learns that the bar is filled with shield agents. She won't give them up, and she sends out a signal, and Peter comes crashing in, and he saves her, and they swing away. And the story, it just solidifies why Peter and MJ are together, and it's probably one of the strongest comic couple moments. Like, you've never felt two partners more intertwined. Like, he'll do anything for her, she'll never give him up, and he will always be there to save her. And it's how they did it, how they framed it, how the final panels go together, and how they're just going to work on figuring it out. Beautiful issue. I barely even mentioned the flashbacks because most people remember it for the flashbacks, but the issue is absolutely worth your time.
absolutely.
um, I mean, yeah, you've noticed my list is almost all DC with little sprinkles of, a Silver Surfer and a Spider-Man.
Sprinkle,
um,
like that guy with the
yeah,
salt.
yeah.
Sprinkle.
But when it comes to Spider-Man, my favorite stuff about Spider-Man, almost even more than the action, is the really well put relationship building comics.
Mm.
Like, I almost also put in here Ultimate Spider-Man Annual #1 when he first starts dating Kitty Pryde. I'm obsessed with that type of stuff. I can't get enough of it. I've talked too long.
No,
You're up
man,
with
you
number
you
2.
can't speak enough good things about that issue. It really
Yeah.
is.
I think a lot of people don't know it too, which is why I wanted
Yeah.
to mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the issues too, where why I feel like MJ is perfect for Peter Parker. I know a lot of the die-hard Spidey fans love Gwen Stacy, and they were super, hurt when they decided to kill that character off. But I think MJ has always been the favorite.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. Number two, again, going back to fights, man, action. I love that. I eat that shit up. We got Amazing Spider-Man number 316, the first cover appearance of Venom. Man, this issue is crazy. Titled Dead Meat, by the way. And so, again, we got classic Todd McFarlane on here. Again, favorite artist. We have David Michelini on story. And man, Venom is just looking for Spidey. He wants revenge on him, and this is the issue why I loved Venom, because he was so ruthless, he was so mean, and this issue too is just like, this is everything that Spider-Man would have been if he decided to keep the symbiote suit. It would just eventually taken over him. So, and that's why I love Venom so much, because ultimately he is a darker Spider-Man. But man, he is absolutely ruthless in here. He absolutely beats the shit out of Black Cat in this issue, and also has Spider-Man running for his life.
Dude, what a pick, and I know how much that book means to you. Yeah, big
Yeah,
Venom head that you are. I think that's got to be most Venom folk might quote that as being maybe their favorite issue. Lethal Protector number 1. I actually really like that initial miniseries a lot.
yep.
I put a lot of my chips into that, but that 316 cover, can you beat that? I mean,
No, you
no.
cannot, sir.
Yeah, I don't think you can. So probably probably one of Todd's best covers that he's.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think so.
Ah,
All right. Shall we hit you with number 1?
hit me with it.
This is a really weird choice for me. And again, this list is a little out of order, but I could be content with this one being my number 1. And it's Batman 500. Batman 500 is a pivotal comic because it was either double sized or like triple sized. This thing's gigantic.
It's thick.
Bane has beaten Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne's broken, right? So it's weird that my number 1 on my list is a Batman comic that is not Bruce Wayne's Batman, it's Jean Paul Valley. And the whole issue is the rematch where now that Jean Paul Valley has taken up the mantle of Batman, there's still this menace of Bane that has to be stopped. And Batman's shortcomings was that he's not able to go to these extra lengths, but Jean Paul Valley takes these extra lengths. And it just goes to show Azrael, Jean Paul Valley, as Bats, beats Bane in an epic page by page confrontation where he kicks Bane's butt in the end. And it's because he can do what Bruce Wayne can't. But at the same time, he's not a complete psycho yet
Mm,
because Robin's talking with him at the end and he has a moment of human in him where he spares Bane's life. Jean Paul Valley really was a fantastic character. I love Azrael, as many of you probably know,
yep.
but that issue really shows that he is almost a worthy successor to the role if it wasn't for that whole planted in your brain, indoctrinated into the whole ancient
Yeah.
thing that eventually kind of messed him up. He had good intentions.
No. Yeah.
The main thing is just like Superman 82, just like the death of Elektra, just like a lot of our entries on this list, this might be one of the most action packed Batman comics you might ever read. And it's not Bruce Wayne. That's what's
Yeah.
so crazy. And it's so epic. Any fans of Bane, this is a must read. Fun fact, Bruce Wayne has actually beaten Bane only very select times. Um, one time was like when they finally have their rematch. Bane's not on Venom.
No, he just
John,
kicks the crap out of him
yeah,
without.
John Paul Valley beats Bane when Bane's on Venom.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne essentially never actually does that. He's got a couple tussles, but a lot of the Bane fights typically end with like almost a Deus ex machina situation where someone helps Batman. If
Right.
you really go back and look at all the Bruce Wayne Bane fights, Bruce Wayne doesn't do too great up against Bane. But
No.
Jean Paul Valley, it just takes him like 20 pages and he beats Bane's butt. Just
Also,
goes to show you.
if you notice, if Batman does beat Bane, or if when he fights Bane, he always somehow has to stop him from getting the venom to his body in
Mhm.
order to beat him or fight him. So it's like that's like the first go-to strategy.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's like a little interesting Batman history trivia for you there. So, but
yeah.
Batman 500, it's a whale of a book. It's brutal. It's a thick boy. All right, Kev, what is your number one, my
Oh
friend?
man, I mean, if anyone kind of got the gist of it, I mean, James said it. I'm a huge Venom head. This book I've read millions and millions and millions of times. We just got to go with it. It's an Amazing Spider-Man number 300. Todd McFarlane art, David Michelini on artwork. First origin story of Venom. Notice how I didn't say first full appearance. Because I will argue that 299 is. But 25th anniversary issue. Love this storyline. I mean, so we get Venom's origin story in here. So we find out, how he got the symbiote suit, why he has such revenge for Spider-Man, why he's out to get him. There's a classic fight scene in here, and how Spider-Man comes up with the solution on how to beat Venom. I just love this book. I mean, I actually don't think it's long enough. I could read this story all the time. When I do, I read it in the trades, even though I have 8 freaking copies of this book.
Yeah.
It got so. I just love this book so much that I even went ahead to do sort of like a motion comic read along on the channel, where
And
we.
I'll include a link to that, and I will add to my viewers. I have seen his motion comic reading. Correct me if I'm wrong. Are you one of the voice actors?
Yeah, so I voice act Spider-Man, uh, Eddie Brock, which I thought could have done a bit better, but I also voiced Venom, which was a blast. It was
Oh
absolute
my god,
blast.
that's
But I had some friends and family members voice other characters. I did most of the work because it was just so hard to find other people who were willing to do it.
yeah, dude. That's a really cool video because we've all read 300 many times, but this was a really cool way to do it. It almost reminds me. There's a Batman Long Halloween on YouTube where it's a full voice
Yeah,
recording
I've
of it,
watched it.
and
It's amazing.
I've watched that several times. And then you dropped that video, and I was like, Kev, yes, like, uh, yeah, yeah. I don't that's such a banger of a book. I had a feeling that was going to be your number one.
I mean, I
I,
think everybody kind of knew, right?
yeah, yeah. It's now, granted, my number one might change in a week. Now that's just how I am. There, I have like 30 or 40 that are just too important to me. It kind of fluctuates. I definitely don't actually have an actual favorite comic book of all time. I just don't
Yeah,
think I do.
yeah,
But yeah, ASM 300 honestly might be on my list too. How perfect is that, man?
yeah, man. In high school, like I know I have books that are much bigger than this, but this is my grail right here. When I was in high school, I was like, man, I will never own that book. I'll never pay more than $100 for a
Hmm.
comic book. Look at me now, everybody.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, absolutely love this book, and that's why I was just hoarding them. And people were like, dude, you're crazy. And now look at me. They're like, what? At least 900,
Yeah,
$800 a
now
pop.
they're like, hey, can I buy one of those off you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same way I feel. Like I have some very valuable books. I'm on my wall. I've got a first appearance of Daredevil, and I love Daredevil. I like that cover.
Mm.
I'm relatively pleased with the grade. It's a 3.5, which
It's better than
I
mine.
think I think it can I think it can actually get into the 4s, but I'm not gonna try. But I have books that are worth 50 cents that I enjoy more. Some of
Yeah.
them have been on this list. Like this list, shit, some of the ones I've mentioned here, you will actually find in dollar bins. Uh, Superman 82, it's not worth $1, it's worth more, but you'll find it in dollar bins. Batman
Yep.
500, it's worth more, but you find it in dollar bins. So, this is why I say get out there and keep on hunting. Some of this classic stuff, it's out there. It's gorgeous. It's amazing reads. And yeah, even though we're a little focused on the late 80s and 90s, um, there's great, amazing comic books happening all the time. I know some people that tell me that some of their favorite comic books ever are like Image comics from the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So there are great books coming out. Someone just told me something is killing the children is their favorite comic book.
I
Um,
mean, that's cool. I mean, yeah, it
that's
is a
super
great
cool.
story, but it's also kind of refreshing that someone would consider something that new to be their favorites.
Yeah, and, like, we know Swamp Thing's gonna be amazing till the end of time. There's always gonna be good writers on that, and maybe the next 10 years, there'll be another Swamp Thing book that'll end up on this list. But I just really like that there are still books that can be favorite books being
Yeah.
made all the time. So, um, you know, 8 Billion Genies, dude, it's great. It's really great. Dude, Image, where I'm getting so off track here, but Image has been killing it the last couple of
They
years.
have,
They've
yeah.
really, I think their quality's been a little higher than DC and Marvel, actually.
I mean, I wouldn't lie. Yeah, I would totally agree with you.
Yeah, but hey, listen, top 10. I totally understand your list, and it's been so awesome having you on here doing this
Yeah,
list
man.
with us. Do you have anything you want to say? Any giveaways you got going on? Any sort of thing like that?
Well, I'll just say thank you for having me on, thinking about me to do this video with you. I mean, it's always been fun hanging out with you, man. Um, I have been taking a little bit of a hiatus on the channel. I've been really busy with life, and as we all know, that happens. Life happens, but I do plan on coming back soon. Hopefully soon, sooner than later. And then once I do, I would like to make some more videos, maybe even another read along video if I have the time, because I did really enjoy that, and I
Yeah,
want to do my
got it.
favorite story, which is Batman Year One, and I've been dying to do that.
Dude, if you I will gladly. I voiced a couple cartoons actually in college, so hit
I'll
hit
hit you up.
hit a brother up, dude. That's awesome.
Cool, man. Yeah, man. So that's what I got. If you guys want to show some love and support, it's always greatly appreciated.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite YouTube channels out there, and yeah, you took a hiatus, and I've been bummed, so we're waiting for you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I'm a busy guy. Like, unfortunately, well, maybe not so much anymore. But I like there are only honestly like 6 or 7 YouTube channels that I would actually watch, and I noticed when you kind of took a break there. So we can't wait for your grand return.
Thanks, man.
Everybody, in case you didn't at the start of the video, make sure you go over to Superpower Review, like, subscribe. You've got to do all that stuff. Um, Kevin's been doing this for some time, and his
Yeah.
channel is really awesome. Really, really awesome. As always, keep on hunting. You got any catchphrases?
Stay super.
Superpower, yeah. Review, yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again.